Oleksandr Usyk did this press conference yesterday in his home country, and he talked about the prospect of the Fury fight. So I'm going to give you some quotes here. He said, "I want the WBC title." He said, "Although many in boxing would like this fight, we don't know what Tyson has in his head. Everyone knows that he is a very crazy guy. Managers and promoters are working to make the fight take place. I would really like this fight to happen next year. But if it's not Fury, then there is no interest in boxing with anyone else." He does kind of contradict that a little bit in just a second, but that's what he says so far. He goes on to say, "Fighting Tyson Fury in December is impossible." We don't like hearing that. He says, "For two reasons. First, I have old injuries that need to be treated. They made themselves known. Recovery will take a couple of months. Second, I just don't want to box in December. I haven't left the gym for half a year. I want to be with my children, my family. There are certain things to do at home. Boxing can wait a little. Next year, I think it will happen." And he then, this is where he contradicts himself, says, "If Fury floats away, then maybe we will agree on a third fight with Joshua." I mean, that's just a cash in, right? Beat Joshua for a third time just for because he loved the payday first two times. Now, with regards to him saying that the fight in December is impossible, I'm going to give Oleksandr Usyk the benefit of the doubt because of the fact he has such a solid track record with going straight into tough fights and not messing around and not dragging it out and making people wait for years and blaming someone for, "Oh, you didn't make he's to blame for the fight not happening," and all the carry on that you get from certain fighters. Never had that from Usyk. And he has had a history of injuries over the past few years. I think he had an elbow injury and several other injuries. So if he says he's picked up a couple injuries from the AJ fight, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And Tyson Fury, of course, after Usyk has come out and said this in the press conference, has jumped on him and said, "Back up your words, I'll obliterate you middleweight." He calls himself a 7-foot behemoth. Tyson Fury is nowhere near 7 foot. He's maybe 6'7", 6'8" at a push. I know he markets himself as 6'9", but there are so many pictures of Tyson Fury next to people who actually are 6'9", and he's not as tall as they are. And there's even a picture of him with Robert Helenius where he looks shorter than Helenius. Helenius is listed at, I think, 6'7". So, and Helenius might be taller than 6'7", but still, yeah, Tyson Fury. But this is Fury's nature, to always exaggerate things. His dad's the same. They always exaggerate. It's like pathological. I don't necessarily think that they're thinking it through when they do it. It's like a force of habit. And even though it might be a subconscious action by Tyson Fury, I think that on some level, it's strategic, even if it's, as I say, a subconscious, because what this does, or what it attempts to do, is make him seem bigger and more formidable in the minds of his opponents. When he's saying, "I'm 7 foot and I'm this and I'm that." Very similar to what Muhammad Ali used to do. Ali would always demean his opponents and big himself up. And he would constantly do this all the time. And at the very least, it would serve to frustrate the opponent and make them angry so Ali could walk them onto shots and what have you. With Tyson Fury, it's a similar situation. But for me, is Tyson Fury as angry about the situation as he says, in terms of the fight not happening in December? Would Tyson Fury even agree to fight in December? And the reason I asked that question is because he could have fought Usyk earlier on this year, but he wanted an interim fight. And that was when he'd been active. That's when he just fought Wilder a couple months earlier. And he was like, "Nah, I need to fight someone in between Wilder and Usyk." Well, now he's had even longer out the ring than he did coming off the third Wilder fight. So how keen is he going to be to go straight into the Usyk fight this time? Since he wasn't that keen on doing it last time, how keen is he going to be on doing it this time? Maybe he wants an interim fight. Maybe that's what the Derek Chisora fight was all about. talking about fighting Chisora for a third time. And maybe Tyson Fury is as keen as he's making himself out to be here. Maybe he looked at Usyk's performance in the Joshua rematch and he weren't particularly concerned with what he saw. That's possible. But it's also possible that he's just been an opportunist here. That he himself wouldn't particularly want to fight in December. Maybe he intends to take an interim fight. But since Usyk came out and said what he said at that press conference, Fury's using this as an opportunity to make himself look good, like he's the one pursuing it and he wants it now. And, you know, Tyson Fury is very good at all the mind games and the trickery, the misdirection. He's very good at all that. But I'm always on my guard with this guy because Fury couldn't lie straight in bed. You know what I mean? Anyone who actually takes Tyson Fury at his word and thinks that he's sincere, I mean, I feel sorry for you. There was some guy in the last live stream I did who was adamant that, you know, we can trust Tyson Fury's word and this, that. It's like, are you having a laugh? Tyson Fury is probably the least trustworthy heavyweight out there in terms of following through on the stuff that he says. In terms of lying, I mean, this guy tells some absolute whoppers. So, and look, not everything that Fury says is going to be a lie. Sometimes he's going to tell the truth. But it's hard to figure out when he's telling the truth and when he's lying. Do you know what I mean? Because he lies so often. It's like the boy who cried wolf. So, yeah, that is what that is. It's disappointing to hear Usyk say that the fight can't happen in December. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for now. If there are other things that crop up that make me believe that Usyk actually doesn't want this fight, then I'll address that at the time. But as it stands right now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's got a good track record. He isn't someone that tends to mess people around and start playing the blame game and all that. He just gets straight in and fights everybody in their backyard. And he has had injuries over the past few years, so I've got no reason to doubt him at this stage. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be Fury fans saying, oh, this guy, blah, blah. There was, again, the guy on the live stream was saying, can I do a call-in where he can come on the line and debate this Fury with me? There's nothing to debate. You believe Fury's word is gospel. That's what it all comes down to. You believe what Fury says is gospel and I don't. So where's the debate? Everything I said about Fury was facts. He wanted an interim fight before fighting Usyk. That's a fact. Now, he drew that Usyk situation out so long that, and obviously there was the whole paying AJ step-aside money to allow the Usyk fight to take place, right? But when he wanted an interim fight, AJ said, nah, you're going to have to pay me more money if you want an interim fight. And obviously Tyson Fury refused. So this guy is saying that at that point, Fury then agreed to the to not have the interim fight and just go straight into the Usyk fight, and AJ came in and blocked it. Well, again, that's according to Tyson Fury. Do you take his word for it? You think this guy's trustworthy? I wouldn't trust Tyson Fury to tell me the time in a room full of clocks. And even if that was the case, hypothetically speaking, from AJ's perspective, because again, Tyson Fury, I could see how he would like to manipulate that situation and say, oh yeah, I would have gone straight into the Usyk fight, but AJ came in and blocked it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just typical Fury to try and spin things in that way. But let's say that was, hypothetically speaking, the case. Well, you can understand AJ for putting his foot down in that scenario because he just got messed around by Fury in 2021. Stringing him along, saying, oh yeah, the fight's going to happen, the arbitration's not an issue. And then all of a sudden, when AJ thinks the fight is on, the arbitration's an issue. So surely AJ wasn't going to let Tyson Fury string him along again and long out the negotiations for the Usyk fight, which just pushes AJ's fight with Usyk back and back and back. Do you know what I mean? When Fury's involved, there's always funny business. So you got to put your foot down. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Tyson Fury and Usyk, let's see what happens. Let's hope that it can get made for the first quarter of 2023, no later than that. And my main concern is Oleksandr Usyk's mandatories, because the IBF don't play around when it comes to calling mandatories. And I'm sure very soon they're going to call the Filip Hrgović mandatory for Usyk. What's he going to do then? At that point, he's going to have to say, look, we need to make this, we need to have a date. We need to have some kind of agreement in place for this Tyson Fury unification. So, and I know some people are going to look at what Usyk said there with regards to Fury fading away. He says he'll do a trilogy with AJ if Fury fades away. Some might take that as Usyk maybe isn't that keen on the fight. And that's a possibility. I'll entertain that as a possibility, but it could also be Usyk acknowledging the fact that Fury likes to mess people around. Fury's got a long history of messing people around. There's one thing that I didn't mention in the previous video where I was talking about all the times that Fury has gone back on his word and messed people about, is the Ustinov fight. Remember when he was supposed to fight Ustinov? And then he pulled out and said, but yeah, his uncle died. But prior to that, he'd said he would never pull out of a fight. He was having a go at other fighters for pulling out, saying that there's nothing that could happen. I think he even mentioned a bereavement. Don't quote me on that, but he mentioned some very serious situations and said there's nothing that could make him pull out. And then he pulls out. On the day of the fight. No, sorry, not the day of the fight. The day before the fight, was it? He pulled out. Fury is something else, man. He's really something else. So, yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below.